I've built a total of 20 customer service chatbots in the past 12 months, 15 of them still active and running, reducing the response time per question to, on average, 2.3 seconds, and helping businesses, clients, leads, and employees with their questions ever since. And I don't want to keep this valuable information all to myself, so this is why here is the whole theory behind how a chatbot needs to be set up and how it needs to look in order to be attractive to customers and working for a team. We'll be covering the entire front end, the back end, and the implementation of how a chatbot needs to be set up from the beginning, and then how it needs to work to still function and get better over time. By the way, at the end of this video, I'll give you for every single part of this softwares and tools that you can use to implement them and build them with your own chatbot. And to go chronological, I would like to start with the backend, as it is the most complex. The backend is set up of 4 parts: the model you will use, the conversational flow, the knowledge base, and a system prompt. The model is really easy, just choose for your chatbot the best model out there. There is Claude and GPT. The latest models are usually the best. Claude is a bit more personalized in the messaging, sounds more human, whereas GPT therefore is more precise in answering and better at finding the actual information. There's just subtle differences, and a lot is down to the system prompt, which we'll cover in a minute. But in general, Claude for personalization of the messages and GPT for the context of the messages. Okay, so the conversational flow. This is completely custom to you, how you want to build your chatbot and how you want it to work. For example, you can build in here an option for a Q&A, a problem-solving flow, a consultation flow, where the chatbot will be consulting the user to a specific problem or a specific need, and a lead gen part, so that a user that is interfacing with the chatbot can be asked questions to see if he's a lead and then be followed up on if it turns out to be so. This, for example, is the conversational flow of a client of mine. It is German, though no worries, I will translate it for you. We have an option to ask a question. We want to get to know the company better, which is the lead gen part. And we want to solve a problem, which is the consultation part. And then we have a no match for if a user comes up with something that I haven't or that we haven't thought of in these past 3, and that will be handled as well. So this is what these flows then look like. In whatever paths you choose to build into your chatbot, I heartily recommend you even to put in fallbacks, meaning that if a question is asked or a problem stated, and the chatbot can't find the answer to that immediately, that there is fallbacks for him to try again or to ask in a different knowledge base. So at least 2 fallbacks. Preferably, you put in an API request as well to an external knowledge base. And for the fallback, the absolutely last option should be to give the chat to a human. So here's what that looks like in the chat itself. Here can a question be asked, and now here we have 2 fallbacks, one to the internal knowledge base right here, and this one is to an external knowledge base. And then before these 2, we have one as well, where we tell our model in here just to look more closely. Oftentimes, this is enough of a fallback, but I like to be safe and therefore have 3 fallbacks. And the last one is to give it off to a human. So we're providing the number of the business to call and the email address to contact. As well, in the chatbot itself, there's an option for a human handoff, so that if someone wants to speak to a human, or this is the last option, then we set him to a human, and a human can handle this. By the way, if you want to know how to build all of these flows, I have tutorials on that on my channel. If I remember in the uploading of this video, which I hope, then I'll put them in the info card. If not, and I forgot, you can go to my channel, look through the videos. There will be some explaining how to set this up. This video is just the theory, so you know and understand what you need to do exactly. One thing we found, by the way, in the messages that the chatbot sends and the answers of the questions and so on, they don't need to be precise as long as the objective is achieved. So as long as the question is answered and as long as the problem is solved, the message does need to be extremely tight. Might sound weird at first glance, as shorter is usually always better, but what we found is that users actually read through a long message as long as their question or problem is answered or solved in that. So don't ensure that it's precise, ensure that the objective, whichever it is achieved. So that's for the conversational flow. For the knowledge base, it needs to be deep, so a lot of information, a lot of niche information about the topics that the chatbot will be answering from. It needs to be compendious, as much information about your product, your website, your service, your business, whatever you want this chatbot to be answering questions for. It needs to know that. These informations need to be in the knowledge base. Otherwise, the chatbot doesn't know them, therefore can't answer from them. Ideally, you want it to be up to date as well and structured. So if it is technically a deep knowledge base and it is compendious, but with no structure, different informations all over the place, random pictures in your knowledge base or in the documents you upload, the chatbot has no idea how to find the correct information, which information is even correct, or how he's supposed to use them. So make sure that it's clearly structured. So structured that a human would understand, and so your chatbot will be able to understand as well. Yes, AI is, especially in this realm, smarter than a human and more effective than a human. Still, it needs to understand what you're trying to get from it. So structured. And to ensure the up-to-date, it is important to regularly update your chatbot. If you build your chatbot in VoiceFlow, VoiceFlow has the option to update automatically. So every time you update something on your website, your VoiceFlow chatbot will update the knowledge base as well to have all the latest information in there. Okay, and the last part which completes the puzzle of the backend is a system prompt. A system prompt is what you oftentimes in the knowledge base of your bot building software, wherever you do it, is the personality you give your chatbot. This is where you tell the chatbot how to answer, how to structure the answers. So for example, there's a bit prompt engineering that comes into this. Give him a role. So you're a helpful customer service employee for XYZ company, and answer the questions from this knowledge base and structure them in the following way. This is a very simple one, just so you get the idea. This needs to be easily formulated, the chatbot needs to understand it, and no second sense, meaning the informations need to be understood and understood in only one way. This needs to be structured as well and clearly articulated. Seems so that I can't clearly articulate myself, small grammar mistake in here, clearly articulated what you want from the chatbot. I have to admit, I just wanted to make sure that these informations are in there. If you write a system prompt, you will naturally look out for all of these things, but just so we have specialized. The front end is for the most part, as you could have guessed, and the design, which is easier said than done. This is always custom for your website, your business, how you want it to look like. The design is entirely in the eye of the observer. And when we're ready with the design of the chatbot, then the features come along. We don't necessarily need features, but they're a cool thing to enhance your chatbot and make a difference from the chatbot of the competition. Some things that you can use here are a voice chat, an option to dictate the text to the chatbot and get it text-to-speech back to you, and a history of past chats with the chatbot. For example, these are things that I like to do. Of course, you can put in your own entirely as you want. A thing I would recommend you to use though is a human transfer, so that if your chatbot isn't able to answer the questions even after 2 to 3 fallbacks, or the user just wants to speak to a human, they need to have the ability to do so. In order to do that, you'll need to have staff to be available. And here's something I like to call the rule of 100 for chatbots, is one employee or one member of your staff for 100 messages that come into the chatbot per day. So if you have 200 messages coming in each day, you need 2 people watching over that. This might seem a lot of work that is gonna get into this, but it really is not. There's just a tiny amount of people, at least from my experience, that are actually gonna speak directly to a human. And 100 messages in a working day of 10 hours is just 10 messages per hour. You can even change that for your own. If you notice that you have 500 messages coming in a day, but just 10% of them or just 1% of them actually want to talk to a human, then you can obviously just align one staff member to that. Okay, and last but not least, the implementation of your chatbot. This is where you put the chatbot into your website, and this is set up of two parts. First, it needs to be clearly visible. Obviously, if your website is all white and the icon of the chatbot is white as well, no one's going to find it. So make sure it's clearly visible, though fitting into the design of the website. This is what we covered in the front end part. Make sure it fits the design, though make sure it is clearly visible and visible as a chatbot, not just a dot of color. You can, for example, put in a chatbot icon in there. Make sure that it's understandable. This is a chatbot. This is where I come when I have questions. And it needs to be entirely customizable whenever needed. And from the entirely customizable, I speak of backend and front end. So if you let your chatbot be built externally with a one-time payment, so you go to someone who knows how to build chatbots and you tell them build this chatbot, and they build it once and you pay them once and then you never speak to them again, and then the chatbot corrupts or a mistake happens or it is outdated, whatever, you will struggle to fix this mistake because you have no access to the chatbot and you're not working together with this particular bot builder anymore. So you need to make sure that you have the ability to customly make changes whenever needed. So as well in backend as in frontend, at least you need to be able to request these changes to be made by your bot builder. So I recommend not doing a one-time project, but working with your bot builder over a longer time frame as long as you have the chatbot. Something that can help here as well is, for example, analytics. So you want to be able to see the analytics, you want to be able to update, this is what I just covered. You want to have access over the controlling, how the chatbot is working, how it's functioning, this is what I just explained. And problem solving as well. When there is a problem, you want to have the ability to either change it yourself or have it changed by someone else. And then after you have done everything of that, everything in the backend, everything in the frontend, and everything in the implementation, then you have a perfect chatbot. So this is the theory behind it. This is the entire puzzle of how this works. I've shown you a bit of the backend here. If built with VoiceFlow, this is how the backend will look like, and this is how I built my frontend. And I told you that I will give you the tools to do all of this. This is fairly simple. So for the backend, I built my chatbots with VoiceFlow. There is other ones out there. BotPress is good. There's some other ones as well. I like to use VoiceFlow. I have done a video on that, whether you should use BotPress or VoiceFlow. This is linked up here as well, if I don't forget. If I forget, it's on my channel. But I like to use VoiceFlow for the reasons stated in this video. And in VoiceFlow, it covers all of this. So everything you need, every single part of the puzzle that is needed for the backend have available in VoiceFlow. And then for the front end, there is something called, see it up here. You will find this website of where you can build this. I can show you. You will find this website when you just search for VoiceGlow. But make sure that you go onto the website of VoiceGlow, not VoiceFlow. There's a G instead of an F. So VoiceGlow, or tick say agents, whatever, you can see it up here. Will be linked in the video description as well. And everything you need for the front end and everything you need for the implementation is covered in VoiceGlow as well. So all you need is VoiceFlow and VoiceGlow, and now you're done. That's all you need. Everything you need is either in the video description or in the info cards up here. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see us in the next video, and until then, goodbye.